Russia has again postponed the resumption of production of the A-50 airborne early warning aircraft. This decision is further evidence of the crisis in the country's defense industry, which, under pressure from sanctions and repeated delays, has already completely shut down the A-100 Premier project, reports Defense Express. Sergei Korotkov, CEO of the United Aircraft Corporation, acknowledged that a decision on launching A-50 production has not yet been made. He stated that the issue will be revisited only after a series of developments and tests are completed. This effectively amounts to an indefinite delay. Currently, Moscow can only count on upgrading its existing aircraft to the A-50U version. However, the pace is extremely slow. Upgrading one aircraft takes up to 2 years. By comparison, during the Soviet era, 3 new aircraft were produced annually. Russia still has 6 older A-50s in storage without engines, but even returning them to service has proven impossible. Experts attribute this to a severe shortage of components that need to be remanufactured and integrated. Problems are also being observed by the base model IL-76, on which the A-50 is built. Despite serial production, delivery plans are constantly being disrupted. The A-100 was supposed to be built on a new version of the IL-76, but the project fell victim to corruption, sanctions, and technological backwardness. Meanwhile, claims have surfaced in the Russian media about the uselessness of AWACS aircraft. They are criticized for their vulnerability to long-range missiles, which seems more likely an excuse after the heavy losses. Ukraine has already destroyed 2 A-50s and damaged 3 more as a result of drone attacks, including Operation Spiderweb. Thus, Russia is left with a small and rapidly declining fleet of AWACS aircraft, with no realistic prospects for their mass production. Each new loss becomes critical, and the ability to replenish the deficit is limited by sanctions and a technological impasse. Recall on the afternoon of June the 1st, the Security Service of Ukraine is conducting a large-scale operation to strike Russian airfields and bases of enemy strategic bombers, as currently reported by a number of media outlets citing sources in the SBU. Dozens of aircraft were hit by drones. These are strategic bombers of the Tu-95, Tu-22M3 type, as well as A-50 anti-aircraft missile and missile systems. It was reported that the Russian army had built a Shahed/Geran launch facility in the Bryansk region. The Russian military facility, conveniently located just 35 kilometers from the Ukrainian border, consists of 2 launch sites with catapults and 4 storage facilities. A satellite photo confirming the new target's appearance was published on his X social media account by Brady Afric, an analyst at the American Enterprise Institute's Department of Foreign and Defense Policy Studies. A drone launch pad was built in a large area between the villages of Aleshek, Voyna, Golishina, Martinovka, and Zivoy Kluch. So occupiers are ready to attack Ukrainian territory with drones from a new site in the Bryansk region, several dozen kilometers from the border. Therefore, Ukraine is expected to strike the territory. One of the most effective means for this is considered to be Flamingo missiles. Recall, Russia is capable of constructing new Shahed launch sites in just a few weeks, raising questions about how and with what such facilities could be neutralized. In Bryansk region, work started in mid-July 2024 with a launch road and initial infrastructure ready by early August. Protected drone storage was completed by mid-September. In Oriol region, construction began on August the 20th with the road and launch pads in place by early September and the site operational by late that month. full build time for a functional launch site was roughly 1 month, though upgrades such as underground drone hangars were added later. While these facilities are within range of long-range drones and missiles, experts note that striking roads or launch platforms would have limited impact. The primary targets would be drone storage facilities, which require precise strikes with sufficiently powerful warheads. Another potential tactic could involve cluster munitions or remote mining to disrupt operations, but such strikes would require systems with adequate range and payload, as well as the ability to overcome Russian air defense and electronic warfare in the area. The speed of construction means Russia could deploy new Shahed launch points in various regions with minimal notice, complicating detection and preemptive action. Earlier satellite imagery and open-source analysis indicated that Russian forces were rebuilding parts of the destroyed Donetsk airport to host Iranian-designed Shahed drones, with new UAV shelters, control stations and runway preparations spotted alongside construction at nearby commercial sites. Since the beginning of Russia's armed aggression, as soon as the Ukrainian Defense Forces acquired the necessary capabilities and weapons, they began regularly striking targets in Crimea. This was reported by retired Captain First Rank and military expert Andriy Ryzenko. First and foremost, these are the enemy's command posts, air defense facilities, weapons, missile systems and ships. Since 2014, the captured Crimea has become a generator of military force for the Russian Federation, which they then directed against Ukraine. Therefore, in order to bleed the enemy dry and reduce its combat potential as much as possible, such work was carried out. Of course, it depended on the resources available to us, the weapons we had, and the enemy's countermeasures, he said on Ukrainian radio. Ryzenko recalled the very effective use of naval drones. This was somewhere between the second half of 2023 and the end of the first quarter of 2024. At that time, the enemy had virtually no countermeasures to our naval drones, and this led to them partially abandoning their Sevastopol base and transferring their most capable newer and more powerful ships to Novorossiysk, which are still based there. They removed all combat ships and support vessels from the sea, he said. According to him, at the beginning of the war, the Russians had up to 50 ships and vessels at sea every day. We now know that there are days when there isn't a single ship at sea. Nevertheless, Crimea remains a Russian military base. And because of this, our security and defense forces, the main intelligence directorate, the Security Service of Ukraine, and the Unmanned Systems Forces Command constantly use aerial and naval drones to minimize the enemy's combat potential, the expert said. Ryzenko noted that many air defense systems were destroyed. He clarified, and a serious indicator that the enemy is currently experiencing serious air defense problems is that a few days ago, Putin asked Turkey to buy back the S-400 air defense systems that Turkey acquired from Russia in 2017 for $2.5 billion. This means that our security and defense forces are certainly seeing results. I think this practice against military targets in Crimea will continue,